Imagine this. You're the king of a mighty city, walls unbreakable, enemies at the gates for years. One morning, they vanish, leaving a massive wooden horse as a gift. Do you trust it? That's the spark of betrayal that changed history forever. Chapter 1. The Seeds of War. Let's dive right into the origins of this epic tale. The Trojan War didn't start over a horse. It began with a divine beauty contest gone wrong. Picture three goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, vying for a golden apple marked for the fairest. Paris, a Trojan prince, judges and picks Aphrodite, who promises him the world's most beautiful woman. Helen, already married to Greek king Menelaus. When Paris kidnaps Helen, it ignites a massive Greek alliance, led by Menelaus's brother Agamemnon, to sail across the sea and besiege Troy for a decade. This wasn't just about love, it was pride, power, and prophecies. For example, Achilles, the invincible Greek warrior, joined knowing it had cost his life, driven by glory. Troy's walls, built by gods, held strong but internal strife. Like King Priam's family feuds planted early cracks. As battles raged with heroes clashing swords and spears, neither side could break the stalemate. This sets the stage for cunning over brute force, leading us into the deceptive strategies that would turn the tide. Chapter 2. The Stalemate of Troy. The Trojan War had dragged on for 10 brutal years, with neither side claiming victory. The Greeks, camped outside Troy's towering walls, hurled everything they had: spears, arrows, and sheer determination. But those walls, said to be blessed by Poseidon himself, wouldn't budge. Imagine the frustration. Thousands of warriors, far from home, fighting day after day, yet no closer to cracking the city. The Trojans, led by King Priam and his son Hector, weren't just sitting pretty either. They launched counterattacks, their archers raining arrows from the ramparts, while their morale held firm, believing their city was untouchable. But cracks were forming. Food shortages crept into Troy, and the Greeks faced dwindling supplies and restless troops. For instance, Agamemnon's decision to take Achilles' war prize, Briseis, sparked a feud that sidelined their best fighter, weakening the Greek effort. Both sides were desperate for a breakthrough, whispering of prophecies and divine interventions. Heroes like Odysseus, known for his sharp mind, started scheming beyond brute force. This deadlock pushed the Greeks toward a radical idea, one that would rely on deception rather than swords. The stage was set for a plan so bold, it would echo through history, which will unravel next. Chapter 3. The Spark of Deception. With the war at a standstill, a new kind of weapon was brewing in the Greek camp. One forged not of bronze, but of cunning. Odysseus, the sharp-witted king of Ithaca, stepped into the spotlight. Known for his silver tongue and clever schemes, he proposed a plan so audacious it stunned even his allies. The idea: build a massive wooden horse, hollow inside, to hide a group of elite warriors. The Greeks would pretend to abandon their siege, sail their ships out of sight, and leave the horse as a supposed offering to the gods for safe passage home. It was a gamble rooted in psychology, banking on the Trojans' pride and curiosity. Odysseus worked with Epius, a master craftsman, who spent days carving the beast from timber, its towering form both majestic and eerie. Every plank was carefully placed to conceal the men inside, with barely enough room to breathe. The plan hinged on absolute secrecy. One whisper could ruin everything. As the horse took shape under torchlight, the chosen warriors, men like Menelaus and Diomedes, prepared for their claustrophobic mission. The Greeks were betting it all on this ruse, setting the stage for a deception that would either win the war or doom them. What happened next would test the Trojans' trust in ways they never imagined. Chapter 4. The Greeks vanish. The sun rose over the plains of Troy, casting long shadows across a scene that baffled the Trojan sentries. The sprawling Greek camp, once alive with the clatter of armor and the shouts of soldiers, was empty. Tents were gone, campfires reduced to ash, and the shore, where hundreds of Greek ships had bobbed for a decade, was bare. The Trojans, peering from their high walls, could hardly believe it. Had their enemies truly given up? King Priam, his beard greyed by years of war, gathered his advisors on the ramparts. Hector's brother, Deiphobus, argued it was a victory, a sign the gods favoured Troy. But others, like the wise seer Cassandra, felt unease, her warnings of danger dismissed as madness. Below, dominating the empty battlefield, stood the massive wooden horse, its polished surface gleaming in the morning. Light. It was unlike anything the Trojans had seen. Taller than 3 men, its carved eyes staring blankly, almost alive. To some, it seemed a divine gift, perhaps an offering to appease Poseidon for the Greeks' safe journey home. Others whispered of trickery, but the sight of the abandoned camp fueled hope. Priam ordered scouts to search the plains, confirming no Greeks hid nearby. The scouts returned, awestruck, reporting only the horse remained, with no trace of an ambush. Inside Troy, the people began to celebrate, their cheers echoing through streets worn by years of siege. Women wove garlands, and children ran toward the gates, eager to see the strange monument. Yet one man, Laocoon, a priest of Apollo, stood apart, his face grim. He climbed a platform and shouted to the crowd, his voice cutting through the jubilation, urging them to distrust the horse and burn it before it could bring ruin. His words stirred doubt, but the crowd's excitement drowned him out. Meanwhile, a lone Greek, Sinon, was found near the horse, dishevelled and claiming to be a deserter. He spun a tale of betrayal, saying the Greeks had planned to sacrifice him to ensure their voyage home. But he escaped. His story painted the horse as a sacred offering, too large to fit through Troy's gates, left to curse the Greeks if destroyed. The Trojans, swayed by his tears and the empty camp, began to see the horse as a trophy of their triumph. Priam, moved by Sinon's tale and the people's fervour, ordered the horse be brought inside as a symbol of victory. Workers dismantled part of the city's sacred gate, a section blessed by the gods, to drag the massive structure through. The effort took hours, with ropes straining and crowds chanting, unaware of the danger they were pulling into their city. As night fell, the horse stood in Troy's central square, a silent giant amid the celebrations. The stage was now set for a betrayal that would unfold under the cover of darkness, waiting to strike at the heart of a city too eager to claim its win. Chapter 5. The night of revelry as twilight blanketed Troy, the city erupted into a festival of relief and triumph. The Trojans, convinced the war was over, poured into the streets, their voices raised in songs of victory. Wine flowed freely, and tables groaned under the weight of feasts prepared from dwindling stores, as families celebrated the end of a decade-long nightmare. The wooden horse, now looming in the city's central square, was adorned with flowers, its massive form a backdrop to the revelry. Torches cast flickering shadows across its polished surface, giving it an almost lifelike presence. King Priam, seated on a high dais, toasted to Troy's resilience, his sons Hector and Paris at his side, their faces lit with rare smiles. The people danced, unaware of the 30 Greek warriors hidden inside the horse's hollow belly, their breaths shallow, muscles cramped, waiting in suffocating silence. Among them was Odysseus, his mind racing, counting the hours until the signal. Outside, Sinon, the Greek deserter left behind, mingled with the Trojans, feeding their trust with carefully rehearsed lies about the horse's divine purpose. But not all were swayed. Cassandra, her eyes wild with visions, roamed the square, crying out that doom lurked within the wood. Her warnings were met with laughter or pity, her prophetic gift cursed to never be believed. Meanwhile, Laocoon, the priest, who had urged the horse's destruction, met a grim fate. As he prepared a sacrifice to Apollo, 2 massive serpents slithered from the sea, their coils crushing him and his sons before the horrified crowd. The Trojans, shaken, saw it as a sign from the gods, a punishment for doubting the horse's sanctity. Fear turned to fervor, and the celebrations grew louder, drowning out any lingering doubts. In the Greek camp, now hidden beyond the horizon, Agamemnon's fleet waited, anchored just out of sight. The warriors aboard sharpened their blades, their eyes fixed on the distant glow of Troy's torches. As midnight approached, the city's guards, lulled by wine and exhaustion, grew careless, their posts half-manned. The stage was set for the Greeks' final move, a moment that would turn Troy's joy into ashes, waiting just beyond the veil of night. Chapter 6. The Silent Strike. As Troy slumbered under a starlit sky, the city's jubilant noise faded into quiet snores and the occasional clink of a dropped goblet. The wooden horse stood motionless in the central square, its dark silhouette blending with the shadows. Inside, the hidden Greek warriors, drenched in sweat and cramped from hours of stillness, felt the weight of their mission. Odysseus, their leader, pressed his ear to the wooden wall, listening for the signal, a faint whistle from Sinon, who lingered near the city gates. Around midnight, it came, a sharp, piercing note that cut through the silence. The warriors stirred, their hands gripping swords and shields in the cramped darkness. A hidden hatch on the horse's underbelly creaked open, and one by one they descended a rope, landing softly on the stone pavement. Odysseus led the way, his eyes scanning the empty streets. Their task was clear: open Troy's gates for the waiting Greek army. Moving like ghosts, the group split into pairs, slipping, past drunken guards and unattended posts. At the main gate, they overpowered the few sentries, their blades swift and silent, ensuring no alarm was raised. With a heave, the massive gates groaned open, revealing the dark plain beyond. Far off, the Greek fleet, which had crept back under cover of night, disgorged thousands of warriors who now sprinted toward the city. Agamemnon, Menelaus, and Achilles led the charge, their armor glinting faintly under the moon. Inside Troy, the first screams pierced the air as the Greeks from the horse set fires to signal their allies. Huts and storehouses caught flame, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. The Trojans, roused from sleep, stumbled into chaos, grabbing weapons but too late to organize. The Greek army poured through the open gates, a tidal wave of swords and spears, cutting down anyone in their path. The city that had stood unbreached for a decade was now defenseless, its fate sealed by the silent strike from within. The betrayal was complete. and the fall of Troy had begun, leading to a night of horrors that would unfold next. Chapter 7. The flames of ruined Troy awoke to a nightmare as flames devoured its streets, and the clash of steel echoed through the night. The Greek army, now flooding the city, moved with ruthless precision, their years of frustration unleashed in a torrent of violence. Houses collapsed into smouldering heaps, and the air thickened with smoke and the cries of the unprepared. Trojan warriors, roused from their beds, tried to rally under Prince Hector's surviving brothers, but the surprise attack left them scattered and outnumbered. Odysseus and his men, who had emerged from the horse, struck key targets, setting alight the royal stables and armory to cripple any resistance. King Priam, now an old man, stood in the palace courtyard, clutching a sword, his face etched with disbelief as Greeks stormed the sacred halls. Paris, the prince who sparked the war, fought desperately to protect his family, his arrows finding targets until he fell, pierced by a Greek spear. Women and children fled toward the temples, seeking sanctuary, but the Greeks, driven by vengeance, spared few. Menelaus, consumed by his quest to reclaim Helen, carved a path to the royal quarters, where he found her, torn between shame and defiance. The city's once mighty walls, now useless, framed a scene of chaos as temples burned and statues of gods toppled. The Trojans' hope crumbled with every passing hour, their dreams of victory reduced to ash. Some, like Aeneas, a Trojan noble, slipped through the carnage, carrying their household gods and a faint hope of survival. The Greeks, relentless, looted treasures and dragged captives through the streets, their triumph absolute but brutal. As dawn approached, the city that had defied them for a decade lay in ruins, its fate sealed by the betrayal of the horse. The aftermath of this destruction would reveal the cost of such a victory, setting the stage for what came next. Chapter 8. The cost of victory as dawn broke over Troy. The city was unrecognizable, its grandeur reduced to smouldering rubble and blood-stained streets. The Greeks, victorious at last, stood amidst the wreckage, their faces a mix of triumph and exhaustion. The wooden horse, still looming in the square, now seemed a haunting monument to their deception, its once polished surface scorched by stray flames. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning wood and the cries of the vanquished. King Priam's body lay lifeless near the altar of Zeus, struck down as he tried to defend his palace, his royal robes stained with dirt and blood. The Greek warriors, led by Agamemnon, roamed the city, gathering spoils, golden goblets, jeweled necklaces, and intricately woven tapestries, loading them onto carts for the voyage home. Menelaus, reunited with Helen, faced a bitter moment. Her beauty, the spark of this war, now seemed a hollow prize, her eyes reflecting the guilt of a city's fall. The Trojans who survived faced grim fates. Women like Andromache, Hector's widow, were bound as captives, destined for slavery in Greek lands, while children clung to their mothers, unaware of the lives awaiting them. Some Trojans, like Aeneas, managed to escape, slipping through the chaos with a small band, carrying their ancestors' sacred relics and a flickering hope of rebuilding elsewhere. The Greeks, though victorious, were not untouched by the cost. Many had lost comrades, friends, who fell in the decade-long siege or in the night's brutal fighting. Achilles, their greatest hero, was already dead, his prophecy fulfilled, leaving a void in their ranks. Odysseus, the mastermind of the horse, surveyed the destruction with a heavy heart, knowing the gods might judge their sacrilege harshly. The burning of temples and slaughter at sacred altars had not gone unnoticed. Whispers spread among the Greeks of divine displeasure, as the sea beyond Troy churned under an ominous sky. The victors began to question their triumph. Was this glory worth the price? As they prepared to sail home, laden with treasure and captives, the weight of their actions settled in. Some, like Diomedes, spoke of offerings to appease Poseidon and Athena, whose favour seemed to waver. The fall of Troy was complete, but the journey home would test the Greeks in ways they couldn't foresee, as the gods prepared to balance the scales of fate. The echoes of this betrayal would ripple far beyond the city's broken walls, leading to a reckoning that awaited the conquerors. Chapter 9. The Gods' Judgment. With Troy reduced to ashes, the Greeks loaded their ships with plunder and captives, their sails catching the wind as they set out across the Aegean. The horizon promised home, but the gods above had other plans. The desecration of Troy's temples, the slaughter at sacred altars, and the hubris of the victors had stirred divine wrath. Poseidon, whose walls had once shielded Troy, churned the seas with towering waves, while Athena, once a Greek ally, turned cold for the violation of her shrine. The fleet, once unified, scattered under storms that seemed alive with vengeance. Odysseus, whose cunning had won the war, faced the brunt of this fury. His ship was tossed for days, far off course, beginning a decade-long odyssey that would test his wit against monsters, sorceresses, and the sea itself. Agamemnon, the Greek commander, sailed toward Mycenae, unaware that his wife, Clytemnestra, seethed with rage over his sacrifice of their daughter years before. His triumph would end in a deadly homecoming. Menelaus, with Helen at his side, drifted through tempests, landing in distant lands before reaching Sparta. Other Greeks met grimmer fates. Some ships sank in Poseidon's storms, their crews swallowed by the deep, while others, like Ajax, faced betrayal or madness for their arrogance. The Trojans' fate was no less harsh. Cassandra, the cursed prophetess, was taken as a prize by Agamemnon, her warnings of his doom ignored as always. Andromache, bound for a life of servitude, mourned Hector and her lost son, her future a shadow of her past. Yet, amidst the despair, Aeneas and his small band of survivors pressed on, guided by visions of a new city far from Troy's ruins, a seed of hope for a fallen people. The gods, watching from above, ensured that neither side escaped unscathed, their scales balancing victory with suffering. The Trojan horse, a symbol of cunning, had won the war, but invited divine retribution, leaving both Greeks and Trojans to face the long shadows of their choices. The final chapter of this saga would reveal the lasting legacy of this betrayal, etched into history forever. Chapter 10. The legacy of betrayal. The Trojan War ended not with a clash of swords, but with a cunning betrayal that burned Troy to the ground. The wooden horse, a masterpiece of deception crafted by Odysseus, became a symbol of trust shattered, its story whispered through generations. The Greeks, though victorious, paid dearly. Odysseus wandered for years, battling divine curses. Agamemnon fell to his wife's axe, and many never saw home, swallowed by vengeful seas. The Trojans' survivors, led by Aeneas, carried their legacy to distant shores, founding a new lineage that would one day birth Rome. Helen, reclaimed by Menelaus, lived in uneasy peace, her beauty forever tied to a city's ruin. The gods ensured no one escaped the war's cost, their justice a reminder that hubris and treachery carry a price. The Trojan horse's tale endures as a warning. Even the greatest victories can hide seeds of doom. Thanks for joining this epic journey. Hit like, subscribe, and comment below to share your thoughts on this legendary betrayal.